Walking around on top of the arena was a bit harder compared to the other day. It was bustling like a city center with a sale on the weekend. "A big event that attracts people from all over," Forden said. Luckily, the platform was quite large and wide, allowing plenty of space for the vast amounts of people to move around. At the moment, most of the people were gathered around the screens that were stationed ever so often along the circular path. They were now turned on and were displaying the starter events for the day. The block event that the group wanted to go to was stationed on screen 7. While walking by, they managed to catch a few events on the other screens. On one of the screens, there was a soccer match going on that allowed the use of specific abilities. There were complicated rules for which abilities were allowed and not allowed for this event. It seemed quite hectic and was hard to follow along, but after the introduction of soccer ability, normal soccer just seemed boring to watch. On the next screen they passed, there were giant pillars as tall as a house. The students were told to use their abilities and craft the most beautiful object they know. It was such a joyous day, and the atmosphere around them was great. Usually on a day-to-day basis, Quinn would have someone throw an insult or a slur at him, but everyone was far too focused even to notice him or the others there. He felt guilty that he wouldn't be able to enjoy the events that were going on, since he had Peter in the back of his mind. Even if he knew why they decided to do this to Peter, he still didn't know what they would do after, nor could he do anything. He wasn't able to get strong enough in time, and hoped that after using Peter as bait, Logan thought they would allow Peter to live at school a bit longer, but before moving him on to trial. In that time frame, Quinn would try to get as strong as possible and save him. Eventually, they had finally reached screen 7, and there was already a large crowd in this section. It was the largest crowd compared to all the other screens. At first, it was mostly filled with just students, but later on, adults and others from different factions came to take a look, since they were too wondering why the event was so popular. "I didn't know Block was such a popular game," Quinn said. "It isn't," Forden replied. "I never expected there to be this many people." The group walked through some of the people who were at the back, not paying attention until they eventually found some seats around the middle area. There were seats for those who wanted to stay and watch the event permanently in front of every screen. Then there were standing areas toward the back and sides for those who might want to continue to walk around and see the other events. Most people preferred to stand. That way they could go to the stands or watch the other events and come back to the ones they enjoyed first. But because Quinn and the others didn't want to watch anything else, they were happy just to sit down. "Sorry," Quinn said as they passed a man that they didn't have any military uniform on and sat in the 3 seats next to him. The man was sitting at the very end of the row. After sitting down and watching the event for a while, they realized how boring a game it was to watch rather than play. The game was currently at level 3, and they needed to witness multiple students do the same thing again and again, clearing the same level. It wasn't an exciting atmosphere like last night, and there were even a few in the crowd starting to yawn. "I think we might have made the wrong decision to trust you to pick the event," Feck said, yawning himself and stretching his arms. "I'll go get us some drinks and snacks. You guys can wait here," Forden said as he left his seat. "Don't worry," the man sitting next to them said as he brushed his long hair that went down to his collarbone away and placed them behind his ear. "Although the beginning is a bore, this type of game gets better in the later rounds," he said with a smile. The man had beautiful clear skin and didn't look a lot older than 20. Both Fex and Quinn didn't know what to say, so they just smiled back at the man and carried on watching the event. What he said was true, Quinn thought. The later rounds would be far more exciting, and he would love to see others perform at a level beyond 5. As the levels went up, more students started to get knocked out. It didn't seem like it was because they couldn't do it, but instead was due to the event's nerves and pressure. They had made silly mistakes at crucial times. The atmosphere was still tame. However, that all seemed to change when they announced they would start to move on to level 4. The audience members seemed to perk up and started chatting heavily among themselves. "Is there something big that happens when it reaches level 4? Fex asked. "Not that I can remember when we played yesterday. It was the same, right, even up until level 5. It just got faster and the attack patterns changed slightly," Quinn replied. The man sitting next to them had overheard their conversation. "Oh, so you managed to bet the game at level 5. I might say that's quite impressive. What's your top level?" the man asked. "I don't know," Quinn replied. "We stopped playing after level 5. We were only playing because of a bet anyway." Vorden soon returned with the drinks and snacks, and by now a few students had already passed and were knocked out by the level 4 machine. Then, when the next participant started, he did something that seemed odd. Instead of blocking the attacks, it looked like he was trying to hit the machine as soon as it moved. The students had gone wild after seeing this. "Is it him? So he was at the event after all," a student shouted. But soon after, he had made a mistake and had hit the machine before it even moved. "Fake!" another shouted. "I guess he couldn't be in the tournament, especially if he were in the video. It happened here on the top floor, remember?" another said. Quinn and Fex, with their hearing, were able to overhear the students talking. While hearing what they were saying, they looked at each other, unsure about what was happening. They didn't say a word, but had a dreadful feeling in the back of their minds. The game continued with several other students attempting to do the same thing. They were hitting the machine as soon as it moved to make it look as if it was standing still. In the end, not a single student was able to achieve it, and even the favorite to win the competition was knocked out. The man who was sitting by their side was finding the whole thing strange. He had watched the event multiple times in the past years, but had never seen anything like this happen, nor the level of excitement coming from the other students, nor the strategy the participants were using. "Can I ask," the man said to the student sitting in front of him, "why are they all attempting to attack the machine like that? Why not just play the game like normal?" "You mean you haven't seen the video?" the student replied. "My guess is the contestants saw the same thing we all did. There's a video of someone playing the game at level 4 who was able to attack the machine before it even moved. He managed to clear the level perfectly, not making a single mistake while doing this." The sound of something hitting the floor and then ice spilling all over the place was heard. When the man turned around, he noticed that the student sitting by his side had dropped his drink. How do they know about the video? Quinn thought. The level 4 event had ended, and since there were not very few participants, the events team needed to do something to fill the time. They decided that they would interview the favorites to win the event. It was quite a shock since most of the participants had been knocked out earlier than planned. On screen, one of the students was being interviewed who went by the name of Kyle. He was the favorite to win the event, but had attempted to do the strange actions and was knocked out in the process. "Kyle, we just wanted to ask, what made you change tactics like that? We saw many here today attempt the same thing you did today, but it seemed like a risky move that didn't pay off," the female interview asked. "This game has become too easy in the past. I knew that if I played usually, I would have had a high chance of winning, but what's the point when most likely the best person in this game isn't even participating? After seeing someone do what seemed like an impossible task, I decided I would try to challenge him in my way. The plan was to emulate what this person had done in a video I saw today. If I achieved that at level 4, I would try to do the same at level 5 and send out a challenge to him. It turns out after attempting and failing at a level 4, I respect this student even more." The screen then went back to the interview, who had a few more words to say. "For those of you unaware, the video Kyle was talking about was uploaded last night. It had become an overnight sensation due to the timing of things and how it was filmed, and done only a day before this very event and at this exact place. The video will be played on the screen now for you all to see." The screen changed once again, and now full on the big screen in front of everyone, the video of Quinn in the gaming booth was then shown. His face was blurred out, but the others, even though it was their first time seeing it, could tell that it was Quinn. The three boys continued to watch the video, which was being played on a huge screen in disbelief. For some reason, that 1-minute video felt like a 3-hour-long movie. All Quinn wanted to do now was run up there and shut it off and erase everyone's memory. "Hey, Quinn, isn't that—" Fex immediately had his hand grabbed over by Vorden and Quinn, who were standing by his side. The two boys then quickly dragged Fex out of the seats as they disappeared out of the crowd. "Fex, are you crazy?" Vorden shouted in a soft but angry voice, knowing that there could still be the others around. The video had now finally stopped playing, and the interviews carried on with the other participants who had attempted the same method. "No one knows it's Quinn, and you were just about to reveal to everyone it was him." The video blurred out Quinn's head, making him unrecognizable. The only thing that could be seen was a blurred person wearing the school uniform. However, Vorden was concerned about whether someone could deblur the video. Would they be able to see the face or not? Unfortunately, Vorden wasn't the right person for things like this, and he wished he could speak to Logan right now and dim his curiosity. Annoyed that he was suddenly dragged away, Fex stepped back a bit and brushed away some of the crumbs of food that had fallen all over him in a rush. "What did you say? No one knows it was him, right?" "Well, I wouldn't be so sure about that one, because there were 5 other people with us at the time who do know it was him," Fex said. "I don't think that's a problem," Quinn replied. "This video seemed to have already spread, right? If they wanted to, they could have already told everyone. In a normal case, someone would be happy for this to happen. Perhaps there are already people coming forward, even claiming that they were the ones in the video. Zach probably thinks I will do the same, and when I do try to discredit it and ruin my big moment. Still, just to be safe, I think we should go looking for them and try to clear their memories a bit," Fex suggested. "Let's split and search for them. We should have done this yesterday, but I didn't think such a small thing like this would become a big deal. Damn it, all we did was play a freaking game." The boys agreed it was always better to be safe than sorry, and even if Quinn was right about his thoughts, there was a chance one could change their mind later on, and this small mistake may bring up huge trouble for them. "It's best if we split up. We can cover more ground then and find them faster. Use the watch to send a message as soon as you see them," Vorden said. The 3 boys quickly split and headed off into different directions as they searched for Zach and the others. While this was all happening, the strange man that was seated next to them couldn't help but find all of their actions odd. Everything changed as soon as the video started to play, he noticed. Was one of them in the video? The man thought. Otherwise, it didn't make sense based on the actions and what they were currently doing now. What an interesting bunch of kids, he thought as he chuckled to himself. Just then, another older-looking man approached him from the side. He wore regular plain clothing that didn't make him stand out much. When gaining access to the area, the public, including the students who weren't participating in any events, were told to hand over all of their beast equipment or leave them behind. "Sir, the main events will start soon. They're instructed me to bring you and the others to an appropriate place as soon as possible," the old man said, bowing down. "Just when I thought I found something more fun to do," the man said as the 2 of them walked off. Vorden was running around pretty recklessly. Unlike yesterday, there were far too many people to check to see if they could find them. Other than Zach, many of them had pretty unmemorable faces as well. The first area Vorden decided to check was nearby the screen. At least then, he would be able to get someplace high and see from the top if he could spot anyone. Looking around, Vorden was trying to see if there was anywhere high he could get a clear view. "Need any help?" a voice called over. "Sam?" Vorden replied as he turned around. The 2 boys quickly started exchanging information, and Vorden explained what was going on and the reason for the worried look on his face. "I already saw the video as well," Sam replied. "And you're in luck. You don't have to worry about those guys. Let me explain." Early in the day, Sam had decided to pay a visit to the gaming center and wanted to talk to the admin man who had uploaded the video. There was no one else who had access to that footage, or at least not that part on that particular day. When he arrived, Zach's group was already there trying to get the original video file from the man. After listening in for a while, it turned out that after the video was a big hit, the group tried to get video proof of what the person looked like, or their name. It turns out they had already attempted to reveal to the people who the blurred figure was, but with no name and only the description of curly hair, it was hard for them to believe. In the video, one couldn't even see if the person had curly hair. It went a step further when they mentioned the student had a level 1 ability on his wristwatch. They thought this would have been a standout feature. Instead, it just became a big lie that was unbelievable. In the end, people completely ignored them. After that incident, they were embarrassed to tell others who they thought it was. So instead, they wanted to get the original video file. However, the man in charge was determined not to give access to the video to anyone, and even claimed the file had already been deleted and rewritten over. Now it was impossible to recover. The man only wanted to share the incredible feat, but didn't want the pressure to be put on the student. If Quinn himself were to come here and ask for the original video, he would have given it to him on the spot. With nothing else to do, the group eventually left the place in disappointment. That's when Sam noticed the main culprit from yesterday wasn't there, Zach. The students were coming towards Sam, so he decided to hide and pretend he was doing something else and tried to listen to their conversation. "I can't believe Zach wouldn't come with us, that wimp. I thought he was better than that. I'm telling you, man, after yesterday, he just said he doesn't want any business with that fellow. It's like he was traumatized or something," the students said as they walked past him. After learning about this incident, Vorden's heart started to calm down a little. It was too much sometimes to keep this many secrets in this small group. His own was enough. Knowing that everything was okay, Vorden decided to send a message to both Quinn and Fex to explain the situation. At the same time, Quinn had received the ping he had just found Zack. Using his hearing and a keen sense of smell, he was eventually able to locate him from yesterday. When there were large crowds of people, all he needed to do was repeatedly use his inspection skill until he found the right person. As soon as Zack's eyes met up with Quinn's, he gulped, remembering that strange feeling when he couldn't control his body. He didn't move or run away and just followed Quinn off to the side. When the two of them reached the edge of the arena, Zack constantly looked over the railing. Thoughts ran through his head of the possibilities this crazy person might have done. He even assumed that his ability might have been mind control. If he could control his body and tell him to stand still, maybe he could also make his look like a... I promise I haven't told anyone, and I won't. I don't even know your name or what military school you're from. From others I heard no one believed them either, and even they know nothing about you, Zack said quickly. Quinn hadn't even asked anything or used his influence skill, and had already gotten all the information he needed. Why couldn't everything be this easy, he thought. Standing in the middle of the pathway was Fex. He was unmoving, and his watch was continually blinking, informing him he had a message that Vorden had just sent. Multiple people walked past him, but his eyes were staring dead ahead, and he didn't even blink for a second. A few meters away, another figure stood there still. I finally found you, brother. Out on the busy platform, things were starting to settle down a bit. The public who had been invited to watch the starter events were being moved out to their seats in the arena. This was because the first main event for the day was about to start soon. With fewer people on the top platform, it was now easier to move and find people. Quinn had quickly met up with Vorden and was surprised to see Sam there with him. They both started to explain the details of what had happened over at the VR gaming center in the morning. After hearing everything was okay, he felt like he could finally relax. Hey, where's Fex? Did you send out a message to him too? Quinn asked. I did, Vorden replied. I sent one out the same time as I sent one to you, telling him our location and everything. I wonder why he isn't here yet. The first main event will start in around 15 minutes. A speaker sounded informing all of the students, as well as the public, to get ready for the first main event. We'll head back to the screen near our hotel. Just send him another message to meet us there, Quinn said. Wait, aren't you worried about him? Sam asked. What if another group like yesterday approaches him? Sam was a little concerned after what had happened yesterday. He wasn't ignorant of the behavior and actions treated towards low levels. He seemed to remember yesterday that not only Quinn but Fex was a level 1 user as well. If another group of people was to approach him, it could be bad news again without his friends around. Don't worry about him. I can't imagine anyone scaring away that guy, Quinn replied. The group, including Sam, had decided to watch the main event together. Although Sam's hotel was quite far away from theirs, he didn't mind the walk back in the evening. If he were to go back and watch it near his hotel screen, he wouldn't have anyone to watch it with anyway. At least, not until Nate was knocked out of the competition, and he couldn't imagine that happening on the first day. Upon arriving at the screen, things looked a little different from when the events were played earlier on in the day. The screen had moved outward and looked like they were all hovering in the air in the arena. It allowed students to look over the edge and either watch the event from up high in the actual area or see sufficient detail on the screen. Several drones were flying about in the arena, each with a camera attached. It would be used to record as much detail of the events as possible. Most students would decide to watch it via the screen, but it was still nice to see what the real thing looked like from above. The boys decided that they would peek over to see what the first stage of the main event was like. Everything that was out before had been cleared, and right now there were a total of 140 small little raised platforms out. On the platform was a workbench of some sort, with several other items and even a hot furnace behind them. While the others had their eyes glued on the stage, Quinn and both Vorden noticed something else. Inside the arena, there was one section of seats that had been cleared out, and in its place was a very large, luxurious booth. There was see-through glass allowing all the others to see what was inside. Inside the booth were 5 relatively large grand chairs. There were also already several soldiers standing on each side of the room, still like a statue. All of them wore the same beast gear that looked to be of very high quality. It was a standout because not many people in the arena had such beast gear on, as they weren't allowed due to safety precautions. It was natural for not only Quinn, but for those around to pay attention to the booth, and he had a pretty good feeling he knew who those seats were reserved for. Then it looked like the first person had arrived at the special booth. The soldiers in the room didn't bow down like they usually would when greeting a guest of high honor. Instead, they immediately went down on one knee and placed their fist on the ground. As soon as Quinn saw the person, there was no need for an introduction. There probably wasn't a single person who didn't know of this man. He continued to walk past the others, his heavy boots hitting the ground. He looked through the clear glass and adjusted his red-tinted sunglasses. Finally, as he sat down in the middle seat of the five, his whole face could be seen. On his chin was a little patch of facial hair, and on the top of his head was a full mop of hair that had streaks of gray going through. It was hard to tell if it was dyed due to the pattern, or whether it was just their old age. Once the man was comfortably sat in his seat, the other soldiers stood up in the room and saluted. "We welcome the Supreme Commander!" The man sitting in the seat was the Supreme Commander Oscar White, one of the men hailed as a hero during the time of the Great War. When the war started against the Dalki race, the enemy had done something unexpected. When the Dalki first arrived, it was clear they were under attack by a form of higher intelligence. They had better equipment and technology than humans. However, when the humans first saw the appearance of the Dalki, they looked strange and more like that of a wild animal mixed with a human. This caused the leaders at the time to be hesitant, thinking about whether or not these were the real enemy or not. In their naivete, they never expected the Dalki to pull off what they had done. While the main forces were in battle, at the start of the war the Dalki had chosen to assault each of the top countries' leaders around the world. This was to cause chaos and confusion amongst the humans, and for a short time their plan had worked. That was until the head of the Allied Earth forces at the time had decided to take charge. The person's name was Oscar White. Later on, after the war, he had given himself the title of Supreme Commander, and then appointed the 7 head generals on the other basis. Of course, not everyone agreed with this, and there was a disturbance of ability users running wild. It was later on that the big 3 families would be established, and further along the line, True Dream would be added to make it the Big 4. In the rose-like building that was seen whilst on the train, there was something called the Leaders' Table inside. Whenever a big decision was to be made, the Supreme Commander, the 7 head generals, and the Big 4 would be called together. Seeing the first person to enter was the Supreme Commander, it looked like Quinn's guess of who the other 4 seats were for was spot on. "Will the others be arriving?" Oscar asked his aide on his right that stood by his side. It was a female who wore a fairly short skirt and round glasses with a ponytail. Rather than looking like she worked for the army, she looked like a security for a big tech company instead. "They should be here any second, sir." As she said that, the doors from behind opened wide, and the 4 others entered after. The first person to enter was a large man who looked to be in his 50s, with a huge apple-like belly. His hair was a scruffy mess that went up into a triangle shape, and his nose was large and round as well. He went on to sit in one of the empty seats, and as he sat down, he gave a loud, belching burp. As the air left his mouth, a stream of fire came out with it before quickly disappearing into the air. "Bernie Sunshield, leader of one of the Big 4 families with the ability of fire," Sam said. The next to follow after him was a female, who seemed to be mostly dressed in black head to toe, and on the top of her head was a pointy hat. The hat was covering most of her facial features, as there was also a veil attached. The only thing that could be seen through was her large smile and her purple dark hair. Not a word was spoken as she sat down in her seat as well. "Mona Bree, the only female to be part of the Big 4 and head of the Bree family. Their ability, Beast Tamers," Sam explained once again. Just behind her was someone who didn't need any introduction at all. Vorden and Quinn both saw the man's face. The blood around their bodies started to pump harder. "Jack True Dream," Quinn said before Sam could introduce this man. "The ability to steal others' abilities." The last person in the room surprised all 3 of them. "Huh? Wait, this isn't the leader of the Grey Lash family?" Sam said confused, as he saw the last person enter. Although Sam seemed to not recognize the man, Vorden and Quinn did. It was the same person who sat by their side while watching the block event. If he wasn't one of the Big 4, then why was he there?
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.